Hi everyone, I'm Grace.
Hi, Grace.
Hi.
How are you?
Good, how are you? Okay, so I'm going to be sharing my testimony today. Um, so it'll be how I became a Christian, but also a bit about God's work in my life after, which I think less people have heard. So it's nice. It was really nice reflecting on it. So I'm very thankful that I had the chance to share. I really didn't want to at first, but I'm thankful. Yeah. Okay. So, becoming a Christian. So, like many of us here, I grew up going to church, and it was more of a social thing for me, so it didn't really mean much. But looking back now, even though my own faith wasn't really there, I was actually blessed to have a really nice church family. I can see how much God showed me his love through just like aunts and uncles there. And so that's something that I'm really thankful for now, looking back, and I really took that for granted before. But anyways, most of my childhood was pretty smooth, pretty normal up until 8th grade. In 8th grade, I got pretty sick, so I had a lot of health problems that resulted in like a lot of allergies. I had to homeschool, and then for me, like the worst part was developing chronic pain symptoms. So out of nowhere for me, like it started to hurt a lot. Like it started to hurt to sit and to stand and to walk. And I got like a lot of screenings, like all the screenings you would get. Like went to a lot of practitioners, and everything just showed up negative or no explanation. So yeah, it was pretty much like pain 24/7, and I just didn't know why I was going through that. So that was a big adjustment for me, and it changed me a lot. So end of middle school, most of high school was really hard on me. So I was just constantly like focused on the physical pain, was always in a bad mood, just obsessing over it. Lots of self-pity and just a lot of bitterness because of that. And I was also just comparing my life to other people around me, like other middle schoolers, other high schoolers. Felt like my life was just so different. And so that made me start thinking about like God a lot more seriously though. So I started questioning a lot of stuff that I had heard growing up in church. Things like, if God is so good, and if he's so loving, then why would he put me through this? And if he's so powerful, then why wouldn't he just take it away? Because we had people like praying like all the time, right? That he would take it away, but years went by and nothing had changed. But again, like I said, that's really when I started to think about my faith seriously. So I would see Christians around me who were going through like similar health struggles, some of them much worse. And I can see like the light in their life and the joy and the peace that they had. And that was something that like I really wanted through this, but I just didn't know how to get it. And then the end of high school came. And so that was also COVID. I had a lot of free time during then, so I really took those few months to just explore Christianity, try to get like basically all the answers to my questions, because I had like a lot of questions around my own life, of course, but also like just about the Bible and Jesus himself and the gospel, right? The story of Jesus dying on the cross for our sins and rising. Like it was just hard for me to just accept that it was real just because I was taught it growing up, just because this book had said it. So really exploring a lot of that. But again, I was really blessed by a Sunday school teacher that I had growing up. Not your typical Sunday school teacher. So she, like her and her husband are both really into apologetics. And so our lessons growing up, like every other Sunday would be like apologetics lessons. But I just like everything flew over my head until like grade 12 when I finally reached out to her and I was like, hey, like I have a lot of these questions about evidence and authenticity of the Bible, right? Like what about other religions? What about science and history and all those things? So she walked me through a lot of stuff. And then in the end, that really pointed to like the Bible as the truth. But the other part was harder. The other part was understanding why God would put me through all this pain if he was a good God. And again, I had talked to her about this, and she shared this verse with me from 2 Corinthians 12. And it says, therefore, in order to keep me from becoming conceited, I was given a thorn in my flesh, a messenger of Satan to torment me. 3 times I pleaded with the Lord to take it away from me, but he said to me, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me. And that is why, for Christ's sake, I delight in weaknesses, in insults, in hardships, in persecutions, and in difficulties. For when I am weak, then I am strong." And so she suggested that maybe God gave me this so that I might be humbled. And so she reminded me that, my life before this was going really well, and everything in terms of academics, friends, family, everything was good. And if it weren't for this, right, I might have never seen my need for God, and I would just kind of go down the typical ways of the world and just pursuing other stuff. So that sort of clicked for me as well. And then at this time too, I was dealing with some family conflict, and so that made me really see my own sin and my own need for God. Struggled with things like hatred and bitterness, selfishness, and it showed me a lot of how I lacked in love. I started to see that, and I also saw that no matter how hard I tried on my own, I couldn't change it. I couldn't love the way that I wanted to. And so that's when I started really seeing my own helplessness in that area and my need for God. So those things together, seeing my need for saving and seeing all the other evidence for Christianity, those things all together, because of that, I decided to put my faith in Jesus. And this was August 31st, 2020. And after that, God really made me new. So he changed my heart towards my family. He gave me a lot of love that I didn't have in myself before, and gave me a love and thirst for him and his word that before I found so dry and so boring. But the biggest thing though was that my pain, and the way that I coped with it, that had changed a lot. And that was really God's grace in that period. He gave me a lot of peace and joy amidst the pain. So the very same pain that hadn't really changed the pain itself, but it just wasn't bothering me as much, and it used to consume my life fully. I actually want to talk about that a little bit too. So I think I heard this from somewhere else before. After becoming a Christian, sometimes God just gives us so much grace and taking away a lot of our struggles from before, magically almost. But sometimes we do return to those struggles, and it's not it just is gone forever. He just teaches us how to deal with it better. So I think, for example, for this, I had this peace and joy that I couldn't explain for quite a while, a few years maybe, as I was growing in my relationship with God. But this term actually felt more like a relapse of some sort. So the pain was getting worse. I wasn't turning to God in it. So I started losing a lot of this peace and the way that I had clung to him before. So the middle of this term was actually really hard for me in that I was falling back into older habits, and I started to see how prone I am to wandering and forgetting God. So honestly, this term has been a lot of relearning the old things that he saved me from, relearning that his grace is sufficient and that his power is made perfect in weakness. So again, that same verse has a whole new meaning to me again. But I've been going through the Psalms and seeing that he does hear my cries. He does answer and he does deliver. So thankfully things are doing better. But God definitely did need to nudge me a bit in that when I was turning away from him. Anyways, that's one part. But something else I wanted to share was just after becoming a Christian, a new Christian in CCF. So again, for me, coming to Christ was more of a logical first step of faith, knowing that I am a sinner, knowing that the gospel had to be true based on this evidence that I had seen. But I would say a lot of truly knowing God himself and his love and Christ himself, this didn't come as easily for me. So that's where kind of the next part of my testimony comes in. So I became a Christian literally a week before first year for me. So as a Christian, I joined CCF. And I was blessed very much by it. Met a lot of people, learned and grew so much in my faith, and I had this Christian community of people my age for the first time. Then I started getting involved in serving and leadership, and I think over the first few years, looking back now, I see there was a lot of self-righteousness, a lot of pride and judgment in those times, serving for the wrong reasons, trying to people please, wanting to maintain this image of what I thought was a good Christian, what that would look like, and then being scared to show my flaws and sort of hiding those. And then at the same time, through all of this, I would look around and then I would see and hear other people who had experienced this love from God so deeply. And it felt like for me, even though I was sure that as a Christian, I had seen God's work in my life, the new life and the new heart that he'd given me. I was growing in my relationship with God. I felt like I hadn't really experienced God's love and known Christ in the same way that some others around me had. So I started feeling more of a fraud in my faith. It was all this good image on the outside, but inside I felt like something was missing. Sort of when you can say the right things, but head knowledge versus heart, sort of. So I felt this scripture really convict me. It's in 1 Corinthians. Yeah, so if I speak in the tongues of men or of angels, but do not have love, I'm only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have a faith that can move mountains but do not have love, I'm nothing. And if I give all I possess to the poor, give over my body to hardship that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. And so I think I felt related to that a lot. But then at the same time, I really saw God's grace through all this, right? Even though I'm nothing, he's still so gracious and using my service and providing people along the way and just guiding me through it all. But it was really those struggles that God used to actually show me more of him and show me Christ slowly. So in God opening my eyes to my own lack of love and showing me, it showed me how much greater his love is. And so in seeing my own weakness, right, seeing who I truly was and knowing that God knows it fully, even if other people don't, that showed me more of how much he must love me. And he's also shown me that I'm free, right, free from needing to be or to seem perfect because God sees it and he knows all my shortcomings, yet still I'm free because of Christ's work. So I don't need to try to measure up or anything because I can't. So that's kind of a bit about what I've been learning these past few years here, and it's still very much a journey, just through different situations of God showing me more of himself and his love for me. And I guess I share this last part because it took me a while to realize that God shows himself and shapes our faith all in different ways. And we don't really need to compare our faith or where we're at, but we just need to seek God and know that he's faithful in revealing himself and changing us. And, for some people it's more immediate, and others it's a course of time. He really reveals himself to us differently. Even if we look at the Bible, each person's story and their relationship with Jesus is so different. So I wanted to share, and by sharing this verse that actually means a lot to me, and I see a lot of truth in it, both in the period of becoming a Christian and also after now. In Matthew it says, "Ask and it will be given to you, seek and you'll find, knock and the door will be open to you. For everyone who asks receives, the one who seeks finds, and to the one who knocks the door will be open." So this is a verse that I actually, I really held on to and prayed over in both periods. In the beginning I would pray over this, that I would seek God and find him as the truth. And then afterwards I would pray that I would seek him and find him and know him himself more. And so he's been very faithful in answering those prayers. And so, it's just an encouragement, wherever you are in your faith, in seeking him as a believer or non-believer, he's faithful in showing us himself. And So yeah, that's my testimony, some of the things that God's been doing in my life. And I hope it's an encouragement.